In this video, we will take examples and try to know what is a critical discourse analysis. Okay, let's start. Studies. Examples of critical discourse analysis studies. The first example that we are going to take is media representation of refugees and migrants. This study focuses on how news outlets frame migration issues. The example of this study is Racism and the Press, written by Van Dijk. The findings of these studies are how newspapers use negative lexical choices like flood and influx with the aim to create fear or maintain exclusionary ideologies. Why it's a CDA? Because it examines how media discourse supports dominant political narratives. The media uses negative words, and the objective of using these negative choices seems supporting political dominant narratives. And another example we are taking is gender and language in advertising. This example focuses on how ads construct gender roles. Gender role presented in advertisements. The example of the study is analyzing beauty products commercials. The finding of these commercials are women are shown as object of gaze, attraction, reinforcing beauty standards, whereas men are shown as active decision makers. For example, the picture of women with bike or the women with a razor. So women are presented as a piece of beauty or attraction, whereas men are the actual decision makers who pay amount and buy. But why CD is there? Because it reveals how commercial discourse produces gender inequality, because men and women have been presented differently. Another example that we are going to discuss is political speeches and power. This focuses on how leaders use language to influence public opinion. Example of this study is Norman Fairclought's analysis of Tony Blair's speeches. The finding of these speeches are strategic use of inclusive nouns, we and us, to create unity, and using of metaphors, framing policies as moral obligation. Mr. Blair has used metaphors as moral obligations and inclusive pronouns like we and us, showing unity. So why did the CDA? Because it shows how political discourse shapes ideology, presenting of moral obligations and use of inclusive pronouns helps in shaping ideology. Another example that we are going to discuss is educational policy documents. This study focuses on how policies represent teachers, students, and learning. For example, analyzing curriculum reforms in post-colonial countries. Findings of this study show that use of global standards or following global standards discourse can marginalize local knowledge system. In going for international standard or global standards, the local knowledge or system is being compromised. So why CD is there? It connects language and policy to broader structure, to broader power structure, that is a global standards, and ignoring the local standards. Another example is of health communication during COVID-19. This study focuses on government's communicator risks, that how governments communicated risks and safety measures. For example, comparative critical discourse analysis of pandemic press conferences. The findings of these studies show that some governments use war metaphors like fight and virus. The other use community solidarity metaphors. Why this is a CDA? Because it shows how discourse influences public compliance and shapes collective identity. So the use of war metaphors and solidarity metaphors aim to influence public compliances and collective identity. Another example of CDA is cooperative social responsibility, or CR reports. These reports focus on how companies frame environmental and social issues. For example, CDA of multinational oil companies' sustainability reports. Findings of these reports show that positive framing hides ongoing harmful practices. For example, using of greener future or prospering future hides the harmful impacts as a result of such activities. Why this is CDA? Because it reveals a gap between corporate language and reality. Reality is something else, but language or promises that have been used are different. Next example we are going to talk about is social media activism. This study focuses on how hashtags drive counter discourse. For example, studying Me Too movement. The Me Too movement posts analyzed for linguistic patterns. Finding of this study shows that storytelling, personal testimony, and repetition created solidarity and challenged patriarchal norms. Why it is CDA? Because it examines how grassroots discourse challenging dominant power, Me Too, used to challenge the power. So if I could sum up what we have discussed, CDA is in diverse context. Politics, for example, politics, media, education, health, business, and online spaces, but always with the aim of uncovering how language shapes and is shaped by power, ideology, and inequality. So the effect of these on language or vice versa is objective of critical discourse analysis. So I hope you have understood it. If you have any questions, please write in the comment box. If you are new, please subscribe the channel. And if you find something useful, please like the video and share it within your circle. Thank you. See you again.